Now, more stories, insights, and analysis of Illinois policy and politics. This is Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute. Once again, your host, AM 560's Dan Proft.
Dan Proft back with Austin Berg on this edition of Illinois Rising. Austin, writer for the Illinois Policy Institute and a columnist at Illinois News Network. And Austin, this is a rather interesting story. There's an organization that seeks to promote growth in Northwest Indiana. I thought that organization was Illinois state government.
So I've talked to some government officials actually in Northwest Indiana and with the Economic Development Corporation. They have the easiest job in the world. They're basically a hotline for distressed manufacturers, for distressed employers that want to leave. And they call them like an advice show saying like, what do I do? My marriage is terrible. Please help me. And they say, yeah, sure. Come right on over. It's real easy.
Well, that's a hotline. There is a proposed extension or new segment of the South Shore train line that could potentially make the commute from Michigan City to Chicago just an hour. Like, think about that, like, coming in from Barrington or Naperville. And that would just make Northwest Indiana all the more attractive than it already is for fleeing Illinoisans. And for more on this topic and the growth of Northwest Indiana generally, we're happy to be joined by Leah Conradi. She is the president of One Region. Leah, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan.
So, it's not bad enough. You guys put up all those billboards, Illinois, come to Indiana. We got balanced budget. We got low taxes. We've got job creation. We have a quality of life you don't have. And, spiking the football on us. Now you're going to improve your transportation infrastructure to make it all that much easier, much more easier for people to relocate from occupied territory of Chicago to Northwest Indiana, but still be able to enjoy the benefits of the city.
That's right. The South Shore train is working on expansion through Lake County in Indiana, and also a double tracking project, so adding another track to a single track, which would decrease the commuter time to Chicago. And
what's the time horizon for that project?
Over the next several years.
Leah, could you talk a little bit about, so we do at the Illinois Policy Institute, we've talked a lot about the backbone of Illinois' middle class, which is manufacturing, and that's sort of been, the rug has been totally taken out from under us in Illinois. We have 3.6% job growth in manufacturing since the end of the recession. Indiana has more than 5 times that, 17.6% growth in manufacturing jobs. Now, I'm interested in this move, sort of the improvement of this infrastructure, because then not only is Indiana reaping the benefits of a good manufacturing climate, but it can also get the runoff of the one thing that is sort of growing in Chicago, and that is these white-collar opportunities. Can you talk a little bit about the types of people you see moving out to Northwest Indiana from Chicago?
Yeah, I think it's going to attract all sorts of people, and I think I don't think it's like zero-sum game or give and take for either state. I think as Chicago grows, Northwest Indiana will grow, and I see them as a connected system. So I see people living in Indiana and commuting into Chicago for those jobs, and then vice versa, living in Chicago and possibly commuting into Indiana for their jobs.
And it's kind of what you're intimating is an important point. You don't view this as you desiring to pick the bones of Chicago. A vibrant Chicago is a benefit to Northwest Indiana and vice versa. So you need Chicago to be successful too.
That's right, exactly, yeah. In fact, from 1970 to 2015, Cook County's core population, so the urban area of Chicago, has had a 5% decrease in population, whereas the suburban area in Illinois of Chicago has increased in population at the same time frame by 225%, and Northwest Indiana has experienced a 5% growth. So if you look at those numbers, Northwest Indiana isn't exactly picking those people off of Chicago. I think we reciprocate off of one another.
Well, Mitch Daniels, a former governor, famously said that living next to Illinois has been living like living next to the Simpsons, and he's right in so many ways. And so the kind of connectedness of the two states and the two regions you mentioned is mission critical. And I would wonder what you pitch people that are considering leaving this Chicago metro region in Illinois, but maybe considering Northwest Indiana, but I'm also looking at Nashville, or Northwest Indiana, but I'm also looking at Florida or Charleston or somewhere else. What's your pitch?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I personally have lived all over the country, and I've chosen to move to the Chicago area, which includes Northwest Indiana. And I don't know that we fall on that radar if that's something that we're exactly considering right now. I think Northwest Indiana as a whole is looking to attract people who are living downtown and looking to move out to the suburbs and trying to get Northwest Indiana on the map as an option for us to become also a suburb of Chicago.
It would seem to me, as a Chicago resident, I've actually thought about this more than I've ever thought about it, the idea of living in Northwest Indiana, frankly, to still have access to the city. But part of the selling point to me would be I immediately lower my cost of living by about a third, and I get a lot more house for my dollar with a lot lower property taxes, just for example.
Yeah, I think that attracts a lot of people. And I think, when I talk with people who are millennials or young professionals and starting to have families and they live downtown or thinking about starting families, and when I talk with them about the commute to Northwest Indiana and if that's on their radar, oftentimes they say no. And the first reason is the commute time. So I think by decreasing that commute time, we would start attracting new people and putting that on the radar.
Yeah, and thus the importance of this segment of the South Shore train line from Michigan City to Chicago. Leah Conradi, president of One Region. Leah, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.